How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the U.S. House passing a bill that would decriminalize marijuana on a federal level. As it stands today, you have certain states that have decriminalized it, but since it's still illegal federally, there were issues with banking and some more things, so it would be decriminalized on a federal level. And I also saw that some nonviolent offenders who had been charged with weed crimes will be released from the penitentiary. Now, I don't know how many people are in jail because of weed alone. Maybe jail, but not the penitentiary. I mean, if you got even the zip in your car, you're not going to the penitentiary. You might not even get locked up. I've seen cops on TV say, hey, if I see you got some weed in your car, it's a little bit a personal amount, I'm not even going to arrest you, let alone send you to the penitentiary. But I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole, so I digress. The whole point is, the major point is that the House passed a bill to decriminalize marijuana on a federal level. It still has to get to the Senate. They have to pass it, and then it would go to the president. Now, I think they're banking on Joe Biden coming in and becoming the president. That's why it has this kind of timing, because they wanted to go to the Senate, and they're going to probably sit on it for a while because you still got the thing going on down in Georgia. So they're thinking, okay, we got the House. If we get the Senate, by the time the runoff election happens in Georgia, they'll be able to press forward and then send it to Joe Biden. That's probably their thought process. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe it'll go to the Senate and then Trump is able to veto it before anything happens. And hopefully Trump does veto it. All right. I'll place the number of Democrats, Republicans that voted for it on the screen before you. You could pretty much see that Democrats are behind this nearly 100%, and the Republicans the exact opposite. I think Matt Gaetz and 4 other people in the GOP voted for it, and it was 6 members of the Democratic Party that voted against it. So it's pretty much on partisan lines. Now, people that are conservative, that are on the right, are kind of confused. They're like, hey, why is the GOP voting against this? Like, what's in the bill? Why wouldn't they be for decriminalizing weed on the federal level? Weed is harmless. Weed is okay. It's not really a big deal. It's not like crack, heroin, meth, or whatever. Why are they against it? Well, I'll tell you why. And before I continue, just for full disclosure, I'm totally against decriminalizing or legalizing any drugs, especially weed. Weed was always in this kind of taboo space in the United States. It's kind of legal, kind of illegal, kind of bad, kind of not bad, just a taboo space, all right? Once you remove it from that taboo space, there's going to be the next drug that falls in its place. It's always going to be the next thing. The Democrats that voted for this overwhelmingly, in the majority, are not going to stop right here. They're going to put meth in its place, or opiates in general, or opioids. It's a health crisis, and they shouldn't be treated like criminals when they get caught with any kind of opiates on them. So you might get, 18 syringes full up with fentanyl in your backpack, and they shouldn't get arrested. They shouldn't go to the penitentiary or jail or anything. It should be legal. So the next thing that's going to be in the taboo space is going to be opioids beyond, a doctor's prescription or something like that. Same thing with meth or whatever. That'll be the next thing. Then they're going to try to legalize that. And then it'll be the next thing. They're going to try to legalize that. And the end goal here is to get to Oregon, where all drugs are legal. In Oregon right now, any drug you can think of is legal recreationally. So you can just, smoke crack, shoot heroin, smoke meth, weed, whatever you want. Okay, that's the end goal here. All right, that's what it is. Now, drugs in general are a tool that can be used and is normally used for the total wrong purpose. Once you go overseas, they're against drugs because they understand what it does to society. You go to the Philippines, Iran, China, Japan, anywhere where you may have drugs come in, they don't want drugs because they know what it does to society. They understand that you got to have a productive society, and when it's clear-minded, that cannot be infiltrated from the outside. What better way to destroy a country from within, to destroy their people by putting them on drugs, and then you got all this Instagram and TikTok and whatnot. They can fulfill you with propaganda and all kind of stuff. Okay, what better way to convince you of a thing that's wrong, that's incorrect, that's harmful to you, than to tell you in a very convincing way why you're high on drugs? What better way to have you not fight back, to not stand up for yourself, than that you have all kind of drugs and numb yourself? All right, you're not going to be able to do anything if you're high on drugs for the most part. Now I know some people are going to say, "Well, I know I smoke weed for pain, all this," and okay, I understand that. I mean, at a certain point, I'm not going to say like you shouldn't be able to go to the doctor and get some kind of treatment for whatever you got going on in a medical sense. Okay, you didn't got shot with a 12 gauge shotgun, point blank range. You might need some morphine to go ahead and get some surgery, get that taken care of while you in that situation. But when you just out on the street banging needles on the park bench because you're a dope fiend, you've been like that for the past 15 years. That's a far cry from I need this right now for a medical procedure or pain management or something like that. You understand? Okay, the ultimate goal here is to get Americans hooked on these drugs, and it's weird because people say that those that vote against legalizing weed are voting in favor of big pharma, but don't you understand? Once you take away the taboo nature of using drugs, big pharma would actually win more. If you have legalized weed, there's going to be a huge industry there that can be taxed, regulated, the whole thing, and big pharma will be a part of it. A prime example is this whole thing with vaping versus just regular cigarettes. People say that those that oppose vaping are in favor of big tobacco. Meanwhile, the biggest vape company is owned by big tobacco. Like big tobacco owns like 75% of the vaping industry. If I'm wrong about the exact number, let me know in the comments below. But they own a big piece, if not the majority of vaping. They're going to make money. And also big pharma, a lot of what they do is make drugs to counteract other drugs that you take. Oh, you got the tremors, you're shaking and whatnot. Okay, take some Ativan and whatnot. You know what I'm talking about. Those of you guys that deal with alcoholics and people that got anxiety and whatnot, that take drugs, try to calm it. It's all kind of drugs to counteract it. If you ever go to a hospital or take somebody there that is having some kind of seizure or some kind of alcoholic thing, okay, the hospitals, they're making big money off of that. Okay, you gotta get rehydrated. They're giving you all kind of drugs, Ativan, and all these other Vans and alls and whatnot to calm your anxiety, to calm your tremors. Big Pharma has a whole big line, a whole big industry to counteract alcoholism, to counteract people that are hooked on tobacco, nicotine, and stuff like that. All kind of patches and whatnot. It'll be the same thing with weed. Okay, you feeling a little bit paranoid? Here's a little bit of antipsychosis medication. So I mean, big pharma and the general industry that exists already around drugs are gonna profit big time by having legalized weed, and they could put the cash in the bank where they couldn't put the cash in the bank before because it would not be FDIC insured, nor was it legal because it was not legal on a federal level. It's hard to find a hardcore dope fiend, whether they on heroin, crack, meth, that did not start with weed. Now, I'm not saying that all weed smokers are going to become crackheads. I'm just saying that their apprehension to using drugs kind of fades away with weed. And they might have a situation where they get into an accident, they might get prescribed some pills, and then they like that euphoria. So it's not really a big thing for them to smoke meth or shoot heroin when they cannot get the high priced pills anymore from the doctor. Okay, because hey, it's all right. I don't already used drugs for euphoria before. This is the same thing, but now I get a higher high. I get a deeper high. That's the mind of a dope fiend. And I know this. I've dealt with things before. I've been to rehab, not for myself. I've never used drugs really. I don't drink alcohol, tobacco. I don't do any kind of drugs at all. I'm a teetotaler. I don't even have Tylenol in my house. That's how hardcore I am with it. But I have dealt with those that have been on drugs, and that's usually the story. It starts one way and then it ends another. So this whole thing with weed, I'm just not really a fan of. And you can see who voted for it. Most of the Democrats, you know what it is. The ultimate goal is to get all drugs legalized, and then also to empty the penitentiary out with people that should not be out. All right, it's talking about, oh well, they're in the penitentiary for weed. You're not going to the penitentiary for weed. It's just not going to be a thing. If you're in the penitentiary right now on the weed charge, you probably got a gun charge and some more stuff, okay? I mean, unless your name is El Chapo, you're not going to the penitentiary with a weed charge. And I'm pretty sure that El Chapo is not in the penitentiary just for weed, all right? You're talking about murder and racketeering and all, human trafficking. You probably in the penitentiary for a lot more than that. I know guys that done shot their gun off and hit people with it and got less than 10 years, 5 years in the joint. So you're not going to the joint on no big sentence for having some weed in your car. You probably won't even get locked up, like I said earlier. It might just be kind of a warning to you. I don't think that legalizing weed is a good thing. I think that this is going to be harmful to the U.S. And I think people that are looking a little bit deeper and thinking, more forward should be against it. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you think that legalizing weed is a good thing? If that's your viewpoint, let me know why in the comments below. Or is it not a good thing? If that's your viewpoint, let me know why in the comments below. You guys pretty much know where I stand. I think legalizing weed is not a good thing. Not because of weed itself. I'm not sitting here telling you that weed is some kind of dangerous, harmful drug. It's not really that serious, but it's not even about weed itself. So people get caught up in this whole argument, this emotional argument of weed. They say, oh, I smoke weed and it's less harmful than even caffeine. And it's not even about that. You're missing the whole thing. It's about you have a drug. It's in the taboo spot in society. And once it's removed, it's going to be the next drug. And then it'll be the whole campaign about that drug. It'd be a bunch of compassion about that drug. Then that gets tossed out to be legal. Then it'd be the next drug. And then before you know it, all drugs would be legal. Then you have Oregon. And my last point before I wrap it on up, put the bow on the top. There's an epidemic of quote unquote homelessness on the left coast, California, Oregon, Washington State. But you got to ask yourself, and also places like Austin, Texas, but not San Antonio, which is right down the street, and Denver, Colorado. You got to ask yourself, why is there so much homelessness in these places? Like, is it poverty? It's not about poverty. It's about drugs. When you see somebody living in a mud patch full with just garbage and trash everywhere, that's called drug addiction. You're creating little enclaves of zombies. And for one, I don't want to live anywhere near a bunch of zombies that will do anything to get their high. You're talking about infectious disease, raising, filth, just where you have a bunch of drug addicts at, you're going to have a lot of other problems aside from just the drugs. The drugs are just a catalyst for a bunch of other negative, destructive, and hurtful behavior that ruins the city. It ruins the tax base. It ruins the economy. It's just overall bad. You can see it on the left coast right now. Okay, Skid Row, Los Angeles. I guarantee you that 100% of all the people that are out there on Skid Row are on some kind of drug. I guarantee you. And if I'm wrong, maybe 95%, 90%. They're all on drugs. What you have is not homeless camps. You have drug camps. We got to look at it a little bit differently and see reality for what it is rather than this romanticized thing about, oh, poverty and it's the virus. People can't. Nah, you don't live in filth and in chaos and in pure danger if you don't have to. People that are in little camps like that are just drug addicts. And when you get close to a camp like that, if you happen to live there, it's going to be dangerous for you. So when you legalizing drugs, you got to ask yourself, is the impact on society really worth it? Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.